For many of us, the idea of facing criminal charges may seem a little far-fetched. Yet, whether it's a mistake that's made along your own personal journey, or maybe a mistake made by a family member or a sibling or a child, it's not at all uncommon for our lives to intersect with the criminal justice system. My guest here today is Heather Barberi. She is the owner of Barberi Law. For over 25 years, Heather has been dedicated to helping protect people in the criminal justice system. She's been well recognized by her peers, receiving all the accolades, like being recognized in D Magazine, Texas Super Lawyers, and Best Lawyers in the United States. And we're very happy to have her here today to talk to us about what to do if you or someone you love is facing criminal charges. Heather, thank you so much for taking time to be here today.
I am so excited, and thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this for a while. Okay, so let's dive in.
So I first want to kind of back up and talk a little bit about your background. You're a mother and a lawyer, and balancing all of those things. How did you get interested in criminal law?
It's actually an interesting story because the last thing I wanted to do was criminal law. and when I went to law school, I'm like, the last thing I'm going to do is represent people who are accused of crimes. I thought it would be dangerous for some reason. But when I started practicing, I put up a shingle, is what we call it, and we're just starting your own criminal practice, and kind of went around the courthouse talking to judges. And there was a judge in Collin County, Texas, who gave me a whole bunch of court-appointed cases. And it really kind of launched my career, and I ended up falling in love with it.
Why? what about representing criminals did you fall in love with?
Okay, so I think when the government is coming after you, that's how it is in criminal law, I feel like it's a David versus Goliath, and I'm always for the underdog. And so I felt like I could always get out there and be the voice for, the downtrodden, the people who the rest of the world turn their back on. And I find that no matter who it is, you kind of look into somebody's eyes and see how much they need your help. And that was like a calling for me.
I love it. And I definitely love the fact that you frame this as a calling. It's something that more in the way that you're helping people is just beyond just a job, right?
Yeah. And it's beyond religion. It's beyond philosophical ideals. It is really all about just that connection that I have with them, and in the hopes that, we can get them on the right path. Because sometimes people do make mistakes. Sometimes people are innocent. And if we can get them, to be a better member of society, that's also rewarding.
And that's a win for all of us. What I want to talk about with you, especially today, is kind of dive into criminal charges that you come across where children are charged with crimes. And I would just love to know kind of what are you seeing? And I'm thinking kind of teenage years and maybe young adult years when we send our kids off to college and, they join a fraternity or something. And so what are some of the common charges that you're seeing young adults face these days?
Yeah, well, it depends. I mean, you've got juveniles who are facing any number of charges, all the way from drug offenses up to murder and sex-related offenses. But then when they hit 17, they go into the adult world. And that's where they're going to be in adult court and possibly going to adult prison. And it depends. When you're going to college, for instance, we see more of our alcohol-related and drug-related offenses there.
So one of the things that is sort of nerve-wracking, and I'm not going to say I have any personal experience with this, but maybe I do. When you get the call from your child that they're at a party and the police have just shown up. Like, what should they do? Should they talk with the police? Should they run and hide? Like, what should a young person do if they're in that situation?
Everything that's intuitive, you almost do the opposite of. Intuitively, we want to say, that's a police officer. Go talk to the police officer. They'll probably just call us and have us come pick you up. Well, times have changed. That's not how it is anymore. Again, once upon a time, police officers would bring their kids home to their parents' houses, and the parents would take care of them. And that would be the biggest lesson. Nowadays, police officers don't operate that way. It's really an evidence gathering opportunity for them.
Okay. And so should the child do? I mean, should families have a criminal lawyer on speed dial if you have teenagers?
Okay, I'm biased. Yes, keep me on speed dial. No, what they need to do is ask to have an attorney present, and if they can just call their parents. But if you ask for an attorney to be present, that shuts down any further questioning. So that's the number one piece of advice that I tell them to say. However, it's not often done. And a lot of times people end up kind of getting into digging themselves a hole.
Okay. And what does that hole look like? How do they dig themselves a hole?
By talking to the police officers and really taking leading questions and falling into the hands of a police officer trying to set you up for a crime. And not all police officers are like that. So let me go ahead and make sure that you understand that's abundantly clear. Not every police officer wants a kid convicted of a crime. But when you start talking about, yes, I did this. Yes, that belongs to me. Yes, you can search this. That's when you give up your liberties. And I don't care if you're young or old, you have rights and you need to use those rights.
And so when we talk about having rights, like how do we have that conversation with our children? Because of course I want them also to be respectful of authority and respectful of police, but how do we talk to them about, protecting those rights and what are those rights?
Well, how much time do you have? How much time do we have here? Okay, so I think the primary rights that we like to talk about in the criminal defense world are the Fifth Amendment right, which is the right to remain silent. I always say Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, use it. And that's where I will speak to you. I'm not saying I won't, but I just want an attorney present. So always the Fifth Amendment, and that you have a right to an attorney. And the Fourth Amendment, which is also counterintuitive because the Fourth Amendment says you can't have any unlawful searches or seizures. But oftentimes we assume, hey, go ahead and look in my car. The cop will come up and have a flashlight to your young teenager, for instance, and say, hey, can I take a look in here? You don't have anything illegal in here, do you? And the kids will say, yeah. Adults will say yes.
Right.
And who knows? I mean, you're responsible for whatever's in your care, custody, or control in your car. That means if somebody had a marijuana joint and they dropped it in the back seat, that's on you. And chances are you're going to jail. And that could be other passengers in the car as well. So you have to not only know what's in your car, you have to know what's in other people's cars.
And so the best thing to do in that instance, if they're asking, even if you don't think you have anything illegal, because I always have fallen into that. Well, I mean, what do I have to hide? Of course, go ahead and look. But you don't know what other people have, and you're going to be held responsible for that.
Yeah. You not only don't know what other people who've been in your car have had, like people that you allowed in your car, but what about the technician who was working on your car? What if they had something illegal that fell into the car? So my solution is always ask them to get a warrant before they can search your vehicle and don't consent.
Okay. And so if you ask them to get a warrant, what happens next? So if you're pulled over and the police are looking in your car and they're asking you if they can, search your car because you don't have anything illegal in there, right? And you say, no, I want to talk with my attorney and I'm not agreeing to you searching my car. So then what happens next?
It can go a number of different ways. Mm-hmm. First of all, there's an exception to them having to get a warrant. For instance, if something is in plain view. So if an officer walks up to your car and has a flashlight going back there and sees what he considers contraband, let's say a little baggie of white powder, mm-hmm. he has the right to go in there and start searching it. But barring that, he doesn't. So if he doesn't have any reason to get in your car to search it, for instance, no reason to arrest that individual, then he's got to go get a warrant. And that's going to prolong things greatly.
And so are they going to take you back to the police station while they go get the warrant? Or what happens?
What's really big right now is the drug dogs. I'm sure you've heard about drug dogs.
I've seen drug dogs like in the airport.
Yeah. Well, they're out there in the field. And so sometimes they've got about 15 minutes that they can get a drug dog out there, have the dog go around the car. And then if the dog alerts, like barks or sits down and wags its tail, then they can actually have probable cause to search your car.
Wow. Okay. I'm just taking a moment there. Okay. All right. That makes sense. So they have the dog come out and that gives them probable cause or what else? You said there are lots of different things, different ways it goes.
Yeah. And that would be coming back with a warrant. So let's say they do release the person at that time, but they, for other reasons, maybe they heard from a tipster or another credible witness that this individual has some contraband in their car. They can go back to one of the judges. And as long as they write up an affidavit that provides enough probable cause, all these legal terms.
Yeah.
It has to be credible. Let me put that in regular terms. It has to sound legit. And then if if the judge reads that and finds that there's enough evidence to create that probable cause, then the judge will sign off on that warrant. And whatever that warrant is for, the police officers can go search.
So are they keeping you like there while they go get the warrant? If that's what they're...
I dare say we do have some constitutional rights. That means we don't have to sit at the side of the road for that long. Okay. So it all depends on the totality of the circumstances. And if it seems that there's enough of a danger, yes. However, if it's not, and it's something that can be done later, then they're going to have to let that person be released.
I mean, obviously, letting somebody drive off in a car where they are, that would give them an opportunity to go get rid of the evidence, I would think.
I can believe that happens occasionally. That sometimes people abandon the contraband, and that's another way that a police officer can catch that person is they can follow your kind, son or daughter, and they see them throw out a bag. Well, then the police officer can go seize that bag, and then they can connect it to the individual driver.
And now they're getting a warrant for
their arrest.
Okay. So as parents of teenagers, what do I need to be most worried about these days with regard to my teenagers?
Okay. You said I had children before. I have 2 daughters and a son, and they're all like 20, 19, and 17. So in those possible danger years. And I can remember when the girls were younger, I was so worried about them just being involved in the criminal justice system. Anything could happen to them. But I will tell you that how much things have evolved since I started practicing is now I'm more worried about my son. And I'm more worried about my friends' sons because of the increasing level of false accusations. So I think that our young boys are being targets in a lot of ways. Although the amazing #MeToo movement came through, it has kind of wiped out a lot of presumption of innocence when it comes to our boys in these false allegations cases. So
what I want to know is, because I'm also the mother of 2 boys and a daughter, but what advice do you give to your son then to avoid being accused?
One of the first pieces of advice is if you are out at a club and you're both having drinks, alcoholic beverages, and you're thinking about taking it to a next level or going somewhere to be alone together and to be intimate, that you don't. I know, that sounds like such motherly advice. So here's the problem. A lot of our cases are where people, young women for the most part, were blackout drunk, and the next day said, I would have never consented, because they don't remember. And so in those cases, how do you defend yourself against that? If somebody says, well, no, you were a participant. No, I wasn't a participant, and it's then he said, she said. And either way, even the clients that I have, most of those cases go away because they're not really credible enough to take to trial for the most part. But it really destroys their lives.
It really does. Yeah.
These kids have futures. It's ruined scholarships before, admissions to colleges or graduate schools, and it can really just devastate the family.
And I'm just thinking, he may think, well, I can prove it was consensual because I recorded the whole thing, and that can open up a whole nother bag of unwanted accusations, I'm guessing.
That's
I'm sure, let's talk a little bit about the digital world and what you're seeing in your practice.
We see a lot of people sending nude pictures to their suitors or whatever, or suitees, and that has created a big problem because you've got minors who are sending naked pictures, and it gets in the hands of another person. Let's say it's an 18-year-old and it's a 16-year-old that sent those pictures. We're talking about minors being involved, sex offender registration, felonies, and so I'm going to sound like such a mom, but don't send nude pictures. I guess if you're know
so
their age.
old-fashioned, Heather.
I am very busy these days because of these mistakes that happen along the way. And even though you think your actions are innocent, there's probably a crime behind it, especially when it comes to sexually explicit photographs. So I try to say, stay away from those as much as possible.
Do you know, and you may not know, but are there like good filters for phones? Like when we give our 16-year-old a new phone, is it possible to like keep them from being able to send naked pictures or receive them?
Not only is it possible, it happens all the time. However, our teenagers who are a different generation are miles ahead of us.
Yeah.
And so we are reacting to teenagers now, their actions, and young adults as well, and even adults who, are trying to do incendiary things.
Right.
So at the same time, yes, but we've got to keep up with the technology. And honestly, they're ahead of us most of the time. So it's not about only preventing, but realizing that sometimes they're going to get past those barriers, and we need to be ready just in case something comes up.
And one of the things is we were talking about, the Me Too movement, which yay that, actual predators are being held accountable. But then it also opens the door to the false accusations that you were talking about. And I think the real problem with that is that the people who really are doing the crimes, it waters it all down. It makes it harder to prove your case when there are so many false accusations out there.
It absolutely waters them down. And the first sex-related offense that I ever took, I thought it was like the vast minority, that it was probably an outlier case. And I knew that this person had not done it. It was almost impossible for him to have done it. And it was around the time of the Me Too movement, kind of the early infancy stages of it. And I took on this case and thought that it would, again, be the one and only. Well, no, then there was another one. And then there was another one. And I think that we've taken a bad turn with regard to the Me Too movement and watering down the real cases, because I think that pendulum is going to swing back. And when it does, it's going to be hard for real victims of sexual assault.
All right. Changing. I think that's such an important point. Changing back also then with things to tell our kids as they're heading out there, or things that we have to be worried about. I think there was recent law changes in terms of liability for parents, culpability. If you're hosting a party and alcohol is being served, what do our parents need to know about serving minors alcohol?
Well, first of all, there's a ton of civil liability, but that's your wheelhouse. So I'll stay away from that, right? But as far as furnishing alcohol to a minor, it's a Class A misdemeanor, which means that you could do a year in jail if you're furnishing alcohol to a minor, and it's up to a $4,000 fine. So the laws are drastic.
And so do I just not allow my teenagers to have any gatherings at my house? How do you make sure that they're not, because, I'm not saying anybody in my circle is sneaky, but some teenagers are good at this stuff. And, they leave a party and you see empty bottles. So what is the criminal risk for somebody who's got kids where alcohol is being served in your home?
Yeah, the rule of thumb is no alcohol, zero tolerance. You don't know if another parent could come after you as well and really push for charges to be held against you. So it's a zero tolerance rule. But there is an exception when it comes to parents and their own children. And that's a defense you can use just in case your child is accused of minor in consumption, is what we call it in Texas.
Okay.
And if they are accused of that, and you actually had allowed them in your presence to consume any alcoholic beverages, that's a defense you can use.
Okay. I think there's so many confusing messages out there, because I know, I know there are a lot of parents who freely allow alcohol to be served in their home to other children because they would rather the children be doing that there than going out and doing it somewhere else. But I think you're not aware, when you're allowing that to happen, that there's actual criminal liability.
Yeah, not only criminal liability for one child there, but all of them. So you can have charges against you for every single minor that you gave alcohol to.
What are some preventative measures parents can take if they are going to be hosting a gathering of their child and friends? Should they have a security guard there, or have somebody? What are some good practices?
Yeah. The first one is, of course, to not host them and just be this grumpy old parent who won't allow their kids to have any fun, right? 2 is to have several adults there. We can have friends, family members, all around, just to make sure. It's always good to have as many adults there as possible. And the third is, if you're going to have, anything like alcohol, do mocktails. And so that's really up and coming. It's a good way of just kind of having the feeling like you're having a cocktail, but at the same time, it's not, no alcohol's in it. You're not going to jail. Your kids aren't going to jail. Everybody's going to be in their own beds tonight.
That sounds like such a reasonable plan, Heather. Okay, let's talk a little bit about drugs because, I mean, when you and I were growing up, right, it was, I mean, marijuana didn't come in forms of gummy bears or other gummies and all the things. I don't even know all the things.
Yeah.
So what are we seeing with regard to charges against kids for drugs?
What we try to remind everybody is that in Texas, marijuana is illegal, no matter what form it comes in, whether it's the plant-based or whether it's the chemical-based, like the vape pens, or what they're called, and the gummy bears, the edibles, because those are actually felonies. So you can have, bag full of marijuana leaves, right? And it's a lesser offense than one little gummy. And your kid, 17-year-old with one gummy in their pocket, could end up facing felony charges and be a convicted felon.
I mean, that changes the trajectory of their life in that moment. What about fake IDs? What do you, I mean, kids with getting fake IDs?
Oh, it's very common. And we had a situation where there were several kids with fake IDs at a club, at a bar. They didn't go after the owner because they're friends of the police officers, but instead went after all the kids. And so all the kids got charged with having a fake ID. And so they faced charges at the municipal court level, which still, that could go on their record as well. And you still have to go through the whole legal system.
What are some of the biggest mistakes people make when dealing with the criminal justice system?
The first thing is talking to law enforcement without having an attorney present. Also, I would say consenting to the searches, consenting to anything that's going to involve an invasion of your privacy rights. And I would say if any time that you're dealing with law enforcement, that you need to make sure that you have witnesses there as well. And if not, just ask for an attorney. There's nothing wrong with asking for an attorney. The first thing that most police officers will tell their buddies to do is to ask for an attorney to be present. It shuts things down. And if you didn't do anything, you're not going to be probably caught up into something.
All right. And that is helpful. Now, and I think knowing a good criminal attorney is also really helpful. So thank you for coming out today. What are some exciting things that are going on in your practice?
Well, we're growing and we love it. What we're trying to do right now is to create an environment where we're sharing good lawyering and hiring people from the DA's office who are strong advocates so that they can in turn work for people who need their help. We're moving into the Star in Frisco, which is the Cowboys Training Center, and we're really excited about that. And we're forming a partnership with the Dallas Cowboys. So we will be proud partners of the Dallas Cowboys. So we're really excited to spread the word on that and, basically get out there as much as possible.
That is excellent. As we wrap up our time together, we've talked a lot about the various criminal charges that people can face. If somebody is facing criminal charges or they have a loved one who is, what message of hope do you have for that person?
This is a question that you're probably asking me to summarize like the meaning behind what I do. And I think when it comes to criminal law, people have to understand that they're not as bad of a person as they were the one time that they made a mistake. You don't summarize somebody's value by their worst mistake. Instead, what you need to do is realize that we can get past this. There are a million solutions to people getting arrested. But people are so downtrodden and they feel so much guilt that they think that there's no way out. And our goal is to show them that there was one blip in time and we're going to get you past it.
There's an opportunity. I always say in every challenge, there's an opportunity to learn and to grow and to make your life better. And, if that a criminal charge is what you're facing, it's good to know that there are people like you out there who can really help those facing those charges get their life back on track and move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. If you want to learn more information about Heather and the Barberi Law Firm in Frisco, we're going to include a link to her firm, and we would invite you to follow up. And also we invite you to please like and subscribe to this video. And if you found the content to be helpful, please share it. Thank you so much.